It's so easy to be average. You know it as well as I know it. It takes a little something to be special, Don. It takes a little something special to be a great player. We don't have enough great players. To hell with that! We don't want to coach average. I don't want to be around you. Why be around average?
Proud of our young people in the classroom, in the community, and most especially in 310 days in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the football field.
Three things. Number one, the team that hits the hardest and the longest, the team that starts the fastest, and the team is too damn smart to make mistakes.
If you take it to them, if you don't make mistakes, and you keep taking it to them, hell, there's no question who will win.
It's time for the best Buckeye podcast. By fans, for the fans, where they hate that team up north as much as you do. It's time for the OHIO podcast.
OH! Welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. Welcome in, welcome back. Pull up a seat, pull up a chair, get comfy. We're going to have a great time tonight on the OHIO podcast. I am your host on this ride. I am Buckeye Boggs, a.k.a. Eric Boggs. That guy over there is the Wild Man, Chris Wilds, also known as Marion's Girl Scout Cookie Pusher.
A little bit. I'll tell you what. All I'm doing is working out at the Ohio State store. If the girls happen to be in the parking lot and I happen to go out and try to encourage a few people to buy, that might be, but
Now the question is, Chris, you've lost a lot of weight over the last year and a half, 2 years.
I have.
How many Girl Scout cookies have you snuck?
I have had this year so far, I've had a total of 4 cookies.
That's it? 4 cookies?
Not 4 boxes, 4 cookies.
I would have hammered that already.
Yeah. I've had like 2 of the Adventurefuls. I had a Do-si-do and I had a s'more. That's all I've had.
Beautiful. Yeah. Ryan Wickerman says he's back. What up, brothers? Welcome in tonight, Ryan. Our buddy Don Hoffer. Awesome marketing. You're welcome, Don. So if you're watching this and you're in Marion County, go out to the Ohio State store and lots more next week and buy yourself some Girl Scout cookies, right?
I expect to see you out there, Eric.
No,
As I recall, you wanted something like 2,500 boxes, isn't that?
Yeah, but you didn't turn left off of 23 North when you were heading back and come on over to Lexington Boulevard. So.
Yeah, I'll follow the back of the truck right now. I'll be there in an hour.
We have Kirk Barton, former Ohio State Buckeye, host of Buckeye Scoop. Kirk Barton's going to join us as our special guest for the second part of the show. Looking forward to that. Former All-American, I might add. Got a tree in Buckeye Grove. First All-American we've ever had. Yeah. So that's cool. We got good evening from a Facebook user. So I'm guessing, Chris, that if you're watching this on the Facebook fan page, it doesn't let us know who you are.
Right.
If you watch it from our business page, which is facebook.com/the Ohio Podcast, the OHIO Podcast, there it will let us know who your name is, or on YouTube, obviously. Actually, and on YouTube, it actually lets your picture and logo be seen. So, but hey, good evening to you as well. We're so glad that you're watching. Let us know who you are, by the way. So we got some different things tonight. We're going to talk Tressel, which is one of my favorite people to talk about. But we are going to do a little bit of recruiting talk, and we're going to do something different than we've never done before, Chris. We are actually going to watch in real time together, you and I, along with the audience, the highlight film for one of 2024's biggest recruits in the country, and happens to be the number 1 running back from the state of Ohio in the class of 2024, Mr. Jordan Marshall from Archbishop Moeller Catholic High School down in Cincinnati, Ohio. He is a big-time recruit, and when you watch this highlight film, you're going to see why. And Chris and I are we're going to respond to that highlight film. We're going to let you respond to that highlight film. If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast on Monday morning or Tuesday, whenever you happen to listen to this through Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, or right there on the Scarlet and Game webpage. We're going to edit that portion out because obviously it doesn't make for good audio podcasting. This is a visual medium. However, we do want to invite you to go to our YouTube page at The Ohio Podcast, and there you can actually watch this portion. You can actually watch the whole live show if you want.
And it's worth watching. Not just the show, but this kid's highlight reel is worth watching.
Yeah, so we're going to do that right now. So if you're listening to this, don't worry. We're going to cut this portion out, and we're going to come right back and talk about Jim Tressel for you all. But here we go, guys. This is what we're going to do. I hope this works. So here we go, Chris. Let's see what happens here. So did it change for you, Chris? I hope that you now can see it.
I cannot.
Oh, no.
Well, I'll tell you what, Eric. How about if while you're working on that, I will go ahead and give people a little bit of background on Jordan Marshall.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Jordan Marshall is a 5'11", 193-pound four-star running back from Archbishop Moeller High School in Cincinnati. The 247 Sports Composite has Marshall ranked as the 83rd best player in the nation for the 2024 recruiting cycle. He's 7th best among the running backs and 4th best recruit from the state of Ohio. And Eric, I see this kid as a must-get for Ryan Day. I really do. Not only are we losing the recruiting battle a little bit right now in 2024 within our own borders, but we didn't get a running back for the 2023 cycle. And we currently don't have one for 2024. And while Dallin Hayden has shown a lot of potential, we saw the need for depth in that running back room this past season. So we're likely going to be without Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson both after this season. So, we really, really need to focus on getting this young man. And he is very, very talented. He really is.
Real quick, if you guys can see the video, let us know. If you cannot see the highlight video that is playing, let us know. Chris says he can't see it, which probably means you guys can't see it either. But if one of you could let me know in the chat right now who are watching, if you can see Jordan Marshall's highlight video, let me know. Because it shows me that it's playing, Chris. So Don Hoffer actually responds here. Yeah, they can see it. Cool. All right.
Okay, super. So they can see. Looks like maybe you guys can see it, even you, Eric, but I can't. But that's okay because I'll tell you what, I watched this video already, and I love this kid. I mean, and Don Hoffer just said it. This kid looks like a combination of a Beanie Wells and a Boom Herron,
Yeah.
And I agree. He's in high school, he had 1,961 yards, 30 touchdowns as a junior there at Moeller, had 4 receiving touchdowns as well. I think he sees the field very well. He hits the hole hard. Excellent burst, really good speed. I love the hips and the feet. He can change direction really, really well. He has the great speed to run to the outside, but he's got that power to go between the tackles. And he can break tackles and throw people off. This guy has some strength.
Yeah, he's got that J.K. Dobbins jump cut down.
Yes.
I love that thing. I think as far as picking up extra yards or breaking into the open field when maybe it doesn't look like you can do that, that might be one of the most explosive moves a running back can use today. If you can't run through people or run over people or just run by people with pure speed, you're going to need some shiftiness. He's got that. I love his low center of gravity. He's not very tall, so he's kind of hidden in that backfield, stands behind those big linemen, those big trees up front, and then bursts through the hole, and before you know it, he's gone. So it's hard to tackle what you can't see. Okay?
And not only does he have that low center of gravity like you're talking, Eric, but if you watch, he gets those shoulder pads low as well. He takes himself even lower on occasion, especially when he's trying to get those power runs. He just is a force.
He's got decent hands. You just saw right there the little screen pass. He's got some decent hands. Obviously, a lot of running backs in the high school level can work on their passing or receiving. But there you see another one on a screen. And again, he's so shifty. And I like to use the word greasy for a running back. You can get your hand on him, but it seems like you can't bring him down. He's got some of that greasiness about him. I think this is really, really important for a couple reasons, Chris, as we continue to watch this highlight video.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it. The 2024 recruiting class in the state of Ohio is the best recruiting class we have had in the state in well over a decade, maybe longer. The amount of Division I, Power 5 talent in this class, it's more than we've seen in a long time. Put it to you
It
that
is,
way.
but it's kind of scarier because we've already lost 4 of the top 12 recruits to that team up north. We lost the best edge rusher, the 2 top offensive tackles, and the top defensive tackle of that team up north. Our best tight end is headed to LSU. So I think this is important.
This is not good. So if you follow recruiting, here you have the dream class if you're Ohio State and saying we can get over half the class right here from the state of Ohio. One of the things we argue about all the time is you have to understand the rivalry.
Yes.
Who understands the rivalry better than kids who were born and bred in it? It upsets me that 4 kids have already gone to the state up north. At least I thought there was 2 and there was 2 more leans. Is it 4 committed now for sure?
From what I saw on 247, it looks like there are 4 committed. I believe it was 3, 4, 12, and 13.
That's
If I'm
not good,
mistaken.
man.
Or 3. No, I'm sorry. 3. Maybe it was 3, 6 because number 4 is actually Jordan Marshall. So I think it
Right.
was maybe 3, 6, 12, and 13.
This is not good. Now that doesn't mean that we can't swoop back in and get them. Okay.
Right. Absolutely. We still have time to fix this.
But you're off to a bad start if you're Ryan Day. And I'm not dogging the 2023 recruiting class. I thought it was okay. I thought it was pretty good actually.
Yeah.
Was it as good as what he's done in the past? It's not. And there's a problem we have right now. And you and I have talked about this, and quite frankly, we need to talk about it some more. Most of our 5 stars are what, Chris?
Wide receivers.
They're all in one room.
Yeah.
You've got to have, if you're gonna count stars, which when you talk about recruiting, we should, because you go back and look at the teams with the most 5 stars historically. Alabama, Georgia, right?
Right.
Those are the teams that are in the playoffs the most. Those are the teams that have won the most national championships lately. Stars matter.
Yes.
If you're going to compete with those guys, then you're going to have to recruit with those guys. And we are definitely on the wide receiver level, but we're not at the other positions. So,
Well, I would contend at the quarterback level we're there as well, Eric. I mean, at least we have been the last few years.
but we haven't been able to keep some of them, though. It's the problem in
Right.
the last couple of years,
Right.
So, and I understand it. The transfer portal giveth, the transfer portal taketh away. That was basically the theme of our show last week. But when we look at what we have in our own state, in our own border, you've got to lock that up. It
Yes.
used to be, and we're about to talk about a gentleman here in a few minutes who named Jim Tressel, whose philosophy when it came to recruiting was locking down the state of Ohio,
Right.
making sure you took care of your own border, right? And unfortunately, Chris, Ryan Day seems to not be doing that. Now, Urban Meyer's philosophy was, I'm going to go get the best players everywhere, no matter
Yes.
where they are. If they happen to be in Ohio, great. If they're in Florida, great. If they're in Texas, great. He didn't care. Well, if Ryan Day's taking that philosophy a little bit, it's not going as well.
Can I make a comment here, though, Eric? You talked about it. Jim Tressel recruited Ohio really well. Urban Meyer recruited the best athletes, but Urban Meyer was an Ohio guy. Ryan Day is not an Ohio guy, and he is recruiting everywhere. And don't get me wrong, I think as a recruiter or as a team, Ohio State does a fine job recruiting. I think they do a very good job recruiting. But like you said, we've got to spread it around. And We do. We have to get back to recruiting Ohio because, as we've seen in the rivalry historically, I think we'll find as we go back and look through history, he who wins Ohio wins the rivalry.
It sure feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When that team up north is at its best, it's at its best with Ohio guys.
Desmond Howard, perfect example.
Yeah. So we have to win Ohio, and if we're not even going to win our own state in recruiting,
Right.
this is a bad omen, guys. So I have circled this gentleman whose highlight video we are watching as it wraps up right now, Jordan Marshall. We have to win this recruiting battle. There are 4 schools. He's narrowed his list down to 4 schools. They are Ohio State, that team up north, Wisconsin, and Tennessee. And Chris, you told me before we started recruiting, you're worried about Tennessee winning this one.
Well, I'm worried about Tennessee because Tennessee's throwing around that NIL money almost to the extent that A&M is. And then, you can't count out Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh has made this kid a priority from what I'm hearing. He wants this kid bad. And, hey, let's not forget, Luke Fickell was coaching in this kid's hometown a year ago, less than a year ago. I'm sure some relationships were built there. And I'll tell you what, running backs in Wisconsin have been synonymous for a lot of years.
Yes.
Yeah. This would be a great coup for Luke Fickell. So Ryan Day and his team has to attack this. They have to go on the offensive and nail this kid down, get him into Columbus, because if not, he's going to come back to haunt you. I truly feel that.
Larry Daniels says Ohio is key. Every kid naturally want OSU first. Every kid should naturally want OSU first. To neglect them starts a very bad precedent. Yeah.
Unfortunately, It's not starting anything. We've had this precedent for a while now, off and on.
Here's I'm going to respond to Larry's comment like this. The last 2 years, who's won the game?
Right.
There is Jim Harbaugh can walk into this house. I think that's it. That's all we had there. Jim Harbaugh can walk into their house and say, I've won the last 2. And I know we can try to negative recruit him by going in and saying, yeah, but he's flirting around with the NFL too much. But you got it, Don. Don is exactly right. There it is. Winning matters.
Winning matters. That's right.
And
it really does. And let's not forget, Harbaugh's an Ohio kid. He was an Ohio kid.
From Toledo, born in Toledo. So when we look at that and we see what's going on, these trends, we need to be concerned, I think, as Buckeye fans.
Absolutely.
Because if this class gets away from Ryan Day, it could set us back quite a few years. Now, the last couple of years, Michigan's not had good recruiting classes. They're off to a pretty good start in 2024.
Yeah.
So, and they've been playing the transfer portal better than we have, if you've been paying attention to that as well. So, the rivalry's on. Remember what I said 2 years ago, Chris, the day after we got beat in Ann Arbor. I said the rivalry's back on. They've got a leg up in the rivalry right now. And
I'll tell you what, if we don't get a leg back up real quick, this could get very ugly. This could be, and I know I've mentioned it before, Eric, this could become Cooper-esque.
So when it comes to Jordan Marshall, we need to make sure you pay attention to this because we've already lost the momentum with quite a few good recruits. But if we lose this guy, I think you have the rest of the state's kind of going to go, what's really going on here? So pay attention to that one, okay? All right, let's go ahead to our next topic. Chris, Jim Tressel. What is his legacy? He just retired as the president of Youngstown State this past month. He did a great job there. Obviously, people love him big time in Youngstown State, not only for the job he did as president, but as the head coach when he was there, winning national championships with the Penguins before becoming a Buckeye. What is his legacy going to be? We do have that black eye a little bit from the end of his tenure. He never coached another college game. I don't think he coached a as a head coach, coach the game ever again.
No.
Um,
No, I believe he served as some of an analyst or advisor with the Indianapolis Colts at one point. But that's it. I don't think he ever stepped back on the field as a coach again. And you look at Trussell, 106-22 as a head coach. From 2001 to 2011, he brought home 7 conference titles, had a 6-4 bowl record, 3 national championship games, and a national title. Eric, more importantly, I also consider Trussell the guy who righted the ship when it came to the rivalry. And I love Trussell from the first moment he was there. Now, I knew a little bit about him from Youngstown State because I lived up in that area just prior to him coming back down here. So I'd had a little bit of knowledge of who Jim Trussell was and what he was capable of. But you look, coming off the Cooper years when we were 3-8 in bowl games, 2-10-1 versus that team up north, Trussell came in and he just made us believe. From the first moment he picked up that microphone and he basically came out and said, you know what, we're taking this rivalry back.
mm-hmm.
We're going to give you a reason to be proud of your team and of your students and of the state. And I
In
think
the
he
classroom,
did
in the community, and in
55 days or something like that.
310 days or something like
10
that.
days, yeah.
In Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the football field. Yeah.
And he backed up his words. I mean, you look at the guy. He ended up, 9-1 versus that team up north, correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
They took one away, but
yeah. So
I think 8-1 is his official.
He backed up everything he said, and I love the guy. He was a players coach. I think he fell on a sword to save the players and save the program from humiliation and scandal. Even though there was still some of that, I think had he stayed, it would have been worse. So I think he had an obvious love for this team, for the university, and it was very tragic the way that things ended for Trussell, because I believe ultimately his legacy was somewhat damaged by the indiscretion of a few student athletes. And Eric, I'm not going to go down that road because it's very well documented on this show just how I feel about those players and their place in Ohio State history. Despite their talent, I am very, very disappointed at the way things rolled out with Tattoo-Gate.
Yeah, we've discussed that in the past before, Chris, about whether those players should get their get those games taken back, get those games back.
And you can't do it, Eric, because the fact is,
I disagree with you on that one, man.
At the time, it was illegal. They knew it was illegal. They broke the rules. They gave themselves and the university a black eye, and they disgraced themselves, the university, and I have no compassion for those young men whatsoever.
Totally disagree with you because, Chris, I don't want to rehash this all out again, but
you're going to.
I am. And what they did then is a drop in the butt. Like, it's almost applauded today by the NCAA.
It is. But you know what? That's today. And when this happened, it was illegal. They broke the rules. Like it or not, they broke the rules. They knew the rules. They broke the rules. They need to pay.
Don Hoffer says, his legacy for me was a man who placed value in the student athlete. He brought back a polite swagger in the Michigan rivalry. Unfortunately, like Woody, his career ended in controversy.
That seems to be an Ohio State trend.
Well, yes, I guess you could say that. Woody's tenure at the end, though, had more to do with what he was going through with his mental health, Chris.
Yes.
That, again, was so small and minute for Trussell. And Urban's Urban. I mean, it's one of those things where whether you believe in the health that he's got, the issues with the health, or another desire he has, I genuinely think Urban, Chris, is honest when it comes to those things. I really
I don't
do.
disagree, but you just look, and you talk about what is Tressel's legacy. I think we've got a 2A 2B conversation here because if you look, and we compare him to Urban. If you look at these guys, it's such an interesting dynamic if you compare Tressel to Urban. I mean, obviously Woody's our number one, but you look at Tressel versus Urban, such an interesting dynamic. Both coaches took over troubled teams at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Both coaches left amid controversy.
Mm-hmm.
Both coaches have a national championship on their resume. Both had great success versus that team up north. Both have an undefeated season to their credit. Urban, 83-9 in 7 years, 5-2 in bowl games, slightly better winning percentages on the regular season versus that team up north and in the postseason than what Tressel had. I also think, if not for, again, not to rehash bad memories, but if not for a self-imposed mandate, Urban has 2 national titles. I truly believe that.
Oh, absolutely.
To his credit. I feel like Urban left the program in a little bit better shape than what Tressel did. Not that it was necessarily Urban's or Tressel's fault, but Urban left Ryan Day is a solid successor. Tressel, the reins went over to Luke Fickell, who at the time was very young and had put in a position that was almost impossible for him to succeed in. So I think that when Urban left the program, it was in slightly better shape. I struggle exactly with who is number 2 between these guys. I feel, as I said, it's a 2A, 2B situation. If you look at the whole body of work as a college coach, even if you go there, both are multi-national champions, multiple-time national champions, even though Urban did it on a bigger stage. My mind tells me to say Urban is number 2. The stats don't lie. My heart says, I gotta give it to Tressel a little bit.
I'm going Tressel all day long.
He brought this team out of the darkness that was the Cooper years. He gave us hope.
You know my love for the sweater vest, man.
I do.
It runs deep. Like
I do.
Like if there was like if you said, hey, you get to have dinner with 2 people, like it could be in the past, it could be in the present, like 2 people. I'm picking Jesus Christ and Jim Tressel. What a conversation that would be, man. Larry Daniels says, what would happen today in a similar incident when talking about Tattoo Gate? Or would it never happen with NIL? It wouldn't even happen.
It's not even an incident at this point.
Real quick, guys, before we go to commercial break, our guest, Kirk Barton, is going to be joining us in just a few minutes. But I got to ask, I got to know, I want your guys' opinion real quick. You're the AD of Ohio State, and you have to choose between Jim Tressel in his prime, Urban Meyer in his prime. Who are you going to pick between those 2? Let us know in the comments right now. We need to know if you're watching YouTube, Facebook. Let us know real quick before we go to commercial. Urban or Tressel, which one are you going to choose? I'm choosing Jim Tressel. But
I'm taking Tressel as well, Eric.
Okay, great. Then stop hating on my boy.
I'm not hating. I'm just being a realist. Come on.
I would say if your program was in shambles, Urban would get you to the top faster.
Yes.
But, here we go. We already getting some. Paul Buckeye, he says Urban. Paul Buckeye disagrees with me. He says Urban. Larry Daniels, he's going with Tressel, much more of a gentleman. But you see,
he is a good guy.
He's a great guy, but to me, at the end of the day, it's about W's.
You look at Urban. You look at Urban. You look at Nick Saban's not exactly a great guy, but he's got a lot of hardware.
Yeah. Well, we give him the nickname Nick Satan for a reason on this show. But yeah, Urban. We got one for Urban, one for Tressel. You keep putting those comments below on who you would choose if you were AD. Starting tomorrow between those 2 guys. We're going to go to commercial break. When we come back, we've got Don Hoffer says Tressel for the students. There you go, Don. Very good. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, our guests will be with us.
The OHIO podcast is brought to you by Mastermind. Mastermind specializes in 360-degree high-definition mobile video mapping, GIS integration, and traffic safety studies. Mastermind cares about traffic safety and keeping you safe on the roadway. Visit Mastermind at onlinemastermind.com.
That one.
All right, guys, we're back from commercial break, and here he is, man, the All-American himself, Kirk Barton. Kirk, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate that.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, let's chime right in, man, because you know these guys better than Chris and I do. You were recruited by, played for Sweater Vest himself, Jim Tressel. You coach with Urban Meyer. What are you going to do? I know they're very different people. They're both very successful, but you are the AD of Ohio State tomorrow, and you had to choose between one of those two.
But you said both in their prime?
Yeah, both in their prime.
I'd probably go Urban just because of NIL, and Urban has a way of not taking no for an answer. And you got to understand, Jim Tressel's like my dad. I actually texted him when you said you have dinner with him and Jesus Christ. I think that was pretty funny because I was like, I texted that to Tress just now because I was asking if he is still up here because he just retired at Youngstown, so I'm not sure if he's down to Siesta Key yet or not. With Ellen, because Ellen's a big golfer, so that she stays down there a lot more than he does. But I think he's down there for good now. I think he's out of Youngstown. But Urban, two different guys. Obviously, I think you guys are on point when you talk about Tressel resurrecting the program. It was in a dark place in 99, 2000. And the funny thing is in 01, there wasn't much of a change. It's 7-5. Then obviously that 02 team, caught the hearts and minds of Ohio people forever because we hadn't won a title in anything in a long time. So to beat the Hurricanes and, it's always been kind of like the state school that everybody reps everywhere they go. People go on vacation, they wear their Ohio State stuff so they could puff their chests out a little bit after we beat the Miami Hurricanes. And, Tress is he's one of the finest gentlemen, one of the greatest human beings, one of the greatest coach. I mean, everything you could ever want. The only difference is between him and Urban is a little more demanding. He's a lot more demanding. He doesn't take no for an answer. He doesn't, so again, in this NIL fundraising world, I think Tress would do it, but the biggest difference with Urban and Tress is just the national recruiting that Urban really strove for. It was something that has changed dramatically, and I think Coach Tress would have adapted to it, but we can't just take 20 kids from Ohio like we used to. Like we didn't, that 02 class, we got, Mike DeAndre, Troy Smith, Maurice Claret, Rob Sims, Nick Mangold, AJ Hawk, Bobby. I mean, first rounders, Heisman Trophy winners, really every position, maybe the best running back to ever play here for that 1 year. And they're all from Ohio. And now the talent just isn't here like it used to be. So you have to go into Georgia, you have to go into Florida, you have to go into Texas. And I think that Urban, really was ahead of his time in terms of the aggression on the recruiting trail. And I'm not sure, and I love Coach Tressel, but, some of these committable, non-committable offers, some of the stuff that these guys do now, I don't know if that's his style or his speed, but it's kind of a slimy game now in recruiting, but that's just kind of the way it is. And with NIL, it's never been worse. So
let's talk about recruiting real quick because over at Buckeye Scoop, you guys follow this a lot religiously. You guys put out a lot of good content with that. The 2024 recruiting class in the state of Ohio is pretty doggone good. I think it might be one of the best ones we've had in well over a decade, and it doesn't look like we're off to a good start. Can you calm me down a little bit? You would know more than me.
Well, I think that it's kind of done. We'll get the 3 linemen. We'll get the Armstrong twins. We'll get Mark Nave out of Toledo Central Catholic. I think, you got to recruit the 2 corners that are outstanding, but you're going to end up getting Aaron Scott and Bryce West out of Glenville. The rest of it, I don't know. I mean, I know that, I was in Naples 2 weeks ago, or it was actually last weekend, saw JJ Smith, talked to him for a long time, talked to his dad for a long time. So any recruiting class that starts with JJ Smith makes me extremely excited because he is not only a really freak of nature type talent, but he's such a great kid. He's so humble. He's so focused. He's a grinder. I interviewed him and I said, what can Ohio State, like the Ohio State supporters, because I don't like to use the word fans, I like to use the word supporters because you guys, the people that support the program, What can they expect out of you? And he's like, I'm going to be quiet. All I'm going to do is work. I want to go hard in the classroom, go hard on the field, and just let my ability and play speak for itself. Which, I mean, for a receiver, that's about as good of an answer as you can get. And JoJo Trader was on that 7-on-17, the South Florida Express, and I think JoJo, if he played safety, he might be Ed Reed. I mean, he was unbelievable in a 7-on-7 tournament. He had about 5 picks in 4 games, and 7-on-7 is a short field, so you're not getting 65-yard moon balls to run under. Like, he's like breaking and plucking the ball, and he's a kid that we're going to be in a fist fight for because of NIL, but I think we have a good shot at landing JoJo as well.
Let's talk about NIL. I mean, obviously that didn't exist when you were playing. I'm sure you would have liked that. Every former player I've ever talked to, they all said, "I wish that would have been there." It's changed the game quite a bit, and as fans, we panic a lot. I mean, or as supporters, as you say, we panic.
Yeah.
Are we in a good place? Are we going to be in a better place? I've heard a lot of, hey, we're getting there. We might be a step behind some of the bigger programs. Are we good?
I think we're in a great place, honestly.
Okay.
And I know that's going to shock people and people are going to fall off their chairs, but it's the early movers didn't get great returns on paying kids up front. You got a lot of charlatans out there that are kind of, promising a lot. They don't deliver it. I think that the kids getting a little extra money doesn't hurt. Personally, I don't like it because I liked when we were all just poor and we all kind of had the same things. Like, that's kind of the nice thing about college is you got to go dig through your couch and get quarters to go get a large pizza from Adriatico's or whatever, which I did. Because now, guys are driving G-Wagons and Porsches and stuff. And it's like, I just kind of miss the olden days when everybody kind of had crappy cars. And, some guys had a little bit nicer stuff than others, but it was all pretty equal. Now it's like, there's guys, like CJ Stroud went to the Super Bowl and sat in a luxury suite last year for the Rams game. And again, that's fine because he's CJ Stroud, but I worry about the mental state of some of these kids that maybe don't get a deal or they think they should get a deal, or a guy that's, at a less glamorous position, namely offensive line, where they don't get,
Right.
you could be a first team All-American, and Paris Johnson actually did really well, but, DeJuan got a couple little tiny deals, but, he's potentially be a first round pick, and obviously that'll cash in when it happens. But there's guys that are freshmen that don't play at all that have new cars, and there's guys that are freshmen that have NIL deals. So it's, I don't know. Like there's no closing Pandora's box at this point. I think that our strategy of we pay these kids when we get here because Carnell Tate got a nice deal, Jelani Thurman got a nice deal. You take care of the guys here. The good thing about Columbus is there's a lot of companies that love Ohio State, and Ohio State can be tough to deal with as a university sometimes in terms of fundraising, and it's really expensive to get a sponsorship with the university. So the next best thing you can do is get a sponsorship with the players, because that'll cost you 10% of what it would cost to deal directly with Ohio State. And I think that's the strategy that a lot of companies are starting to get onto. But I think we're fine with NIL. I know people think that it's, oh my God, Texas A&M is going to buy everybody and Miami's going to buy everybody in Florida. I mean, it's cost us maybe Mark Fletcher. It cost us because he went to the U and he got a pretty good NIL deal. But that's going to happen, And if a kid wants to go to Miami, which has been an absolute train wreck of a institution really since we beat them, I mean, good luck. I'm glad that he got the upfront, because Mark's a great kid, and I'm glad that he got the upfront money. But man, you don't know who your coach is going to be in 2-3 years. They've got revolving doors as their head coach, and I know they gave Mario Cristobal a huge deal, but it's this. The stability of Ohio State is something that's really attractive. Like Brian Hartline being the OC now, he's making $1.7 million, so he's not really itching to go somewhere unless he gets a humongous job offer. Ryan Day seems comfortable. He's young. It makes great money, big extension. So there's seemingly some stability at the top, and I think a lot of these kids, they want to be developed and they want stability. And our NIL is our NFL draft, capital that we can show off when we show Garrett and Chris Olave and Paris Johnson and CJ Stroud. Basically, players from every position on the team are first round picks. We've had corners go first, linebackers, defensive ends. So that is a lot more attractive than NIL, in my opinion.
Paul Buckeye says, "Side with me, Kirk." He did. So there you go. He chose Urban there. So there you go.
Appreciate you, Paul.
All right. So let's talk about you a little bit. You're a high school kid in Northeast Ohio. Jim Tressel comes knocking on your door. Tell me your recruiting story, man. How'd you end up being a Buckeye?
Man, it was, I don't have a lot of patience for kids they feel slighted because they didn't get offered by their junior. I was offered in December of my senior year. So I was one of the last guys in the class. I was a guy that was getting ready to go visit Northwestern. I had an offer from Stanford. I was going to go visit Stanford, Purdue. I didn't really want to go to Stanford, but it's Stanford. It's a free scholarship. So, I mean, you got to at least go look at it. Ohio State, I'd camped there. I'd done really well at camp. Felt like I earned an offer. I tested really well, jumped really high, did really well in the one-on-one pass rush drills that they love in those camps. And, I had a good senior year. I played tight end, which was different than obviously tackle. But I was fully willing to become a tackle and devote myself to it. And, it kind of kept me warm. And it was funny at the Ohio State Michigan game in 2002 when we won to go to the Fiesta Bowl. I didn't really know I was rooting for Ohio State, but it's just like, both those schools were kind of slow playing me. So I felt at the time there was a chance I could end up at Michigan, which is weird. I didn't want to go to Michigan, obviously, but if Ohio State doesn't offer you, there's a lot of kids that in Ohio that sadly have to make that choice. I mean, I probably honestly would have gone to Stanford because I really was kind of catching that itch. But Trust, they finally came along as like early December, and I was supposed to go visit Northwestern that weekend, and my head coach Keith Wayfield, he's like my dad, one of the greatest guys in the world. Him and Trust are kind of like my dad. Went to Tress and said, "Hey, are you going to offer Bart? Because he's getting ready to commit somewhere in the next couple of weeks and get it over with." And Tress, it was funny because Tress said, "I told Jim Bowman to offer him months ago," and I was like, "You guys were going to offer me months ago? I could have," because I mean, when they offered me, it was a small class. We only had about 18 guys in our class, and I was the only offensive lineman that they took. They'd offered some, but they went to other places. And man, when he said that they were offering me a full scholarship, I was like, I was like, I literally told my coach, I said, "Tell him I'm coming. I'm done." Because I hated recruiting. I hate the pomp and circumstance. Like I don't like to be traveling and doing visits. Like I don't, it's just like it's so bad how it is now. How these kids want to go see everywhere and do everything and wear every jersey and do photo shoots. But I hated all of that. I just wanted to go to Ohio State. And when they offered me, I went home, talked to my mom. I said, "I'm going to Ohio State." Called them, committed, and it was over. And it was funny because I kept it silent, but of course I didn't realize how the media worked back then. And my phone got blown up by, the usuals, Bill Kurelic and all the guys that work for all the publishing things. And it was crazy because it got leaked, but I didn't know that it got leaked. But it was in the paper the next day, and I didn't really tell that many people. I told like my mom and sister and family. But it's like it's every kid's dream to play at Ohio State, and but then the second step to that is you want to play well, because it's one thing to get that Ohio State scholarship and go there and great, you get to wear the jersey, but you don't want to be the guy that goes there and you never play and you're the guy that didn't deserve the offer or he wasn't good enough for Ohio State. So, there's a lot of pressure that comes with an Ohio State offer and going there because you don't want to be that guy. Like, you don't want to be the guy that, he didn't deserve it or he should have went to Kent State or nothing against Kent State or anything. But, that's a double-edged sword because, as you guys know, Ohio State is not for the faint of heart. I mean, you lose one game there, man, and people are ready to burn your house down and, put you in the ground. And I mean, we saw that with Michigan this year. It's like we lose that one game, man, and they're ready to fire Ryan and they're ready to kill the kids. And I mean, I actually don't mind that because, if you do win it all, then you're like basically, a god for the rest of your life. You're revered. But if you lose one, man, it is not for the faint of heart. But again, I like that. Like, I actually like the passion. I love the people that support Ohio State football, and because they really care. And there's not many sports left where people really care if a team wins or loses, and every win is like life and death. Because college basketball is not like that. The NFL is not like that. College football is kind of it. So, it's fun, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Chris, go ahead with your question, buddy.
All right, so going back to your playing days at Ohio State, I got to ask, the game of the century.
Yeah.
What was it like to be on the field for that game? I mean, you guys come out, you're battling an inspired Michigan team. You come out on top, and that takes you to the national title. Just kind of talk about that game, if you could, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it was a game that, you look at our schedule, and it was like after we beat, I don't know who you beat in the middle of the season. We beat Iowa. Or we beat somebody that was like decent, And then it was just like cream puff city for like 6-7 weeks. It was nothing but Bowling Green and Indiana and Illinois and Northwestern. And yeah, so we do like, and we looked at their schedule and they were playing like Ball State and Antarctica and the Citadel and whatever. So it's like I mean we knew that like what was coming. Like it's like you can see the volcano lava coming at you from a mile away, and you know that it's going to get hot and it's going to be people are going to be and you knew it were going to be 1 versus 2 because we were already 1 and they were either 3 or 2. I mean they were climbing high. They whooped Notre Dame that year. And we knew it was going to be, it was going to be nuts. I mean, we were we had Troy, thank God, because Troy's the best player in the history of the rivalry. He beat good Michigan teams and put us on his back. But, it was, then Bo dies the day before the game.
Yes.
So, you throw that layer on it. And, it was one of those things where I'm like, God, did one of our guys sell their soul and win that one? Is that why we stunk against Florida the next game? Because I was like, we played so great and then we played like crap. And I was like, I didn't know because it kind of, that game, you just don't want to lose that game because that was the one that like everyone will always remember. Like they don't all remember the 07 game or the 04 game or the 01 game, but when it's like an undefeated 1 versus 2 game, because I don't know if we'll ever see that one again. We might, but it's hard because with the SEC they usually have a team in the top 2.
Yeah.
But it was like to win it was just like the greatest relief of all time. Like that was the one feeling I had after we beat Michigan my senior year, which is the next year in 07. Was I was just like, thank God I never have to play these guys again. Like there's no chance I can lose. There's no chance like I get to go out with a win right off into the sunset. And like, that's because again, like it's a lot of pressure, man. And again, like when you win them all, it's unbelievable. It's a blast. So it was so fun to win. The fan base was so excited. And again, and that was a great Michigan team. Like you just look at the parts that they had. They had Lamar Woodley, who was fantastic. They had Alan Branch. David Harris was like a 10-year NFL guy. Leon Hall, Prescott Burgess, Sean Crable. Chad Henne just retired after the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, so he got a ring. So I mean, that was like a legit Michigan team. It wasn't like some of these turds that they've turned in the last 15 years since then. I mean, some of these teams they've had have just been awful, and that team had legit NFL guys that played for long times, and it was a war, and their offense was really good. I kept watching them, and our defense is really good, and I mean they were just shredding us on the ground, and they were running the ball. And they had Jake Long, who's a guy I played with in Miami, a really nice guy, and they were just good. But it was a huge beating Michigan is always just a massive relief. Like if there's the best way I can describe it, you obviously have elation and excitement, but relief is like the number one emotion you have, especially when you're a player or a coach. Because man, it's like, Ryan Day and these guys have found out the last 2 years, you don't want to lose that game, man. And I was lucky because I was, I like the one thing I'm really proud of, is being All-American captain, all that. The first guy to start and win 4 Michigan games, the first one. So I started as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and I played well. No sacks allowed, no penalties, graded out high, was champion every game. So it's like, you always want to like kind of measure yourself. How well did you play in that game? Because, there's guys that stink it up and they're just kind of carried to the victory. And then there's guys that like really play well. And I really prided myself on playing hard against Michigan because I was a child of the 90s. And I grew up with getting, my heart broken every November and watching my heroes like Eddie George and Orlando and guys that I talked to. And still, I talk to Orlando all the time now, which is hilarious because he was my idol. But like I watched their hearts get stomped on by Michigan, and I think that that's something that might be missing a little bit from this year's or the current guys is that they didn't go through the pain that the kids in the early 2000s went through growing up in the 90s. They didn't go through watching your heroes lose and watching their dreams go up in smoke. So I don't know. Like I think that like when you go through some pain, and that's something that Tress talked about. And Tress is like one of the smartest guys. He's like Yoda. Tress literally said, 2001, he's like, that 02 team, they went through some pain now. They had a coach get fired. They went 7-5 my first year, had to get them to buy in, and then they go 14-0. But it's like, a little bit of pain that comes with, like you look at that 14 team that Urban had that won the national championship. They lost their last 2 games in 13, and they got smacked by Clemson, lost the Big Ten championship, broke the 26-game winning streak or whatever it was. And, there's, sometimes a little bit of pain isn't bad. And I know that like everyone's down, we lost to Michigan, lost to Georgia, but like, again, and I'm not for losing games, but you look at just how history works. Like, a lot of these teams, they go through some stuff, and then they get to come back and right the wrongs, so to speak.
So there is going to be a meme tomorrow somewhere of Yoda in a sweater vest. That's going to be out there somewhere. But just one follow-up question though.
Yeah.
Should it have been Ohio State Michigan rematch? I know Florida won, but should it have been a rematch for the national title?
I mean, I see. I think it should have been, but did I want to play Michigan again? No. I was like, let's go play Florida because I don't want to play Michigan again because we already beat them, and it's hard to beat a team twice, especially when they're going to have all the motivation. But again, the SEC was not the SEC. I mean, people, you got to remember in 2004, Auburn went undefeated and they didn't even make the national championship game. So if that happened in the SEC today, if there were 3 undefeated teams and one was from one was Oklahoma, one was USC, and then the third was an SEC school, they'd literally burn down the United States. Like the South would rise again.
Oh yeah.
And then the SEC, because it just wouldn't happen. So that was kind of like Urban Meyer kind of made the SEC, and then Saban came in kind of behind him at Bama in 2007. But Urban's the guy that got that thing cranked up, and then Saban kind of took the torch from him.
So, and those who are watching, we appreciate everybody who's watching. If you want to ask Kirk a question, we got a few minutes. Throw your question down in the comment section. We'll see if we can't slip those in before the end of the show here. But I got to ask you, this is my first opportunity to interview someone who is an All-American. And so I got to know, how are you notified that you are selected? And what's it like to get a tree in Buckeye Grove? And are you there when they plant it? And what's that like, man?
It's really funny because I was sitting in my locker and Jim Cordell said, "You made the coach's All-American team." And I was like, because back in the day, you had to make one of the 4 main ones. You had to make Walter Camp, AP, coaches, or writers, because they didn't count the Fox Sports or the ESPN or the SI.com or Rivals.com. Now it's like they count like 70 different ones now, which is fine. But back then it was like, if you didn't, you could make an All-American. Like I made ESPN.com too, and if I only made ESPN, I wouldn't have gotten a tree. But since I made the coaches one, I did. So, obviously it's what everyone's kind of goal is. I mean, I was voted a captain and I was an All-American, and people ask which one I'd rather be. And honestly, I'd say an All-American because it means that you did your job. And like being a captain is great, but it just means you're popular and people voted for you. But being an All-American means that you did your job at a high level, and that's kind of what you strive to do when you're doing your thing out there, man. You got to be the guy everybody looks to, everybody can count on. And it takes a ton of work. It's a lot of pressure. Being a captain, again, is a double-edged sword because, if you're not a captain, you can just kind of do your thing, worry about you. When you're a captain, you got to do all that. Plus, then you got to lead guys. You got to galvanize guys. You got to get guys going. Sometimes you have to be, not every one of my former teammates loves me because I wasn't exactly, the kindest, most gentle captain in the world. But sometimes you got to give guys a kick if they're not producing at the level or they're not feeling like practicing or going hard. And again, I'm fine with that because again, I was there to win. I wasn't about hurting or helping people feel good about themselves because, sometimes you got to say stuff that's not always popular, but it needs to be said. And that's just part of, being a leader. And it's not always fun. Like there's a lot of people that didn't like Kobe Bryant's teammates didn't like him. Michael Jordan's teammates didn't like him. And again, I'm not saying I'm like one of those guys, but it's just kind of what it is when you're a captain. It's not always about just, standing up and going to the coin toss. Like you got to say some stuff to get guys going sometimes. And I had James Laurinaitis with me and I had Malcolm. So I had 2 fantastic captains that were with me that year. And it was really good. But the trees, like it's something you always dream of. I did not have any idea when they were going to plant it. There's no ceremony. I mean, I literally just went back and checked like every 6 months, and then they finally planted it. And I was like, it's finally in the ground.
Okay.
And a really funny story is that Nick Mangold, he has a tree now. And I was walking through the Grove because I had friends in from out of town before one of the games, so I was showing it to him. And I saw Nick Mangold had a tree, and I didn't know if he even knew that he had a tree because I don't think he ever made All-American. Now, obviously, he's a Hall of Fame level football player, and he should have made All-American. And sometimes writers and coaches are just dumb and they don't understand how good of a player is. But Nick totally deserves a tree. But I was walking through there and I took a photo of it. I texted to him. I was like, "Did you know you had a tree?" And he said, "I had no idea I had a tree." So it was like one of the funniest things ever because he didn't even know he had a Buckeye tree. And I was like, "Yeah, dude, you're like 5 down from mine." And this is Nick Mangold, 2005, and I was happy for him because Nick's a guy that I played with and he was a great teammate, like one of the best players in Ohio State history. Had a great NFL career, and he was a great influence on me when I played. But yeah, that was just like one of those funny things that I think guys always get excited the first time they get to see their tree, though.
Yeah, that's. I had no idea. I mean, that's why I had to know. You would think there'd be like a ceremony, they like bring you back and like, hey, we're planting the tree, and here's your plaque. But you just show up like later, and you're like, oh, there it is. It's like,
there it is.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Larry Daniels, let's see what he has to say here. He says, were there very talented guys that you really had to push before they would give 100%? Ooh, that's a good question.
Always.
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 Not saying you have to say who they were, but there were some guys, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're some of the most talented guys. The guys you have to push the hardest, just because they're so talented. Because they don't have to go as hard because they're just talented. So you got to kind of be kind of a prick towards them, And again, it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not always fun. But it's all about optimizing performance of the team. So if you got to light a fire, you light a fire. And again, I made no bones about it, no apologies. And if it hurt people's feelings, it's fine because you got to remember, like when I was a captain, we had to rebuild from that Florida game, which was like a nuclear missile hitting the Woody Hayes facility. So I mean, it's low morale. We lose Ted, lose Troy, Gonzo, my best friend. Like they all leave. So it was a big rebuild. We were picked to be third in the Big Ten. So I mean, it wasn't like we were all surfing on into preseason number 1. Like it was a very, very hot winter and a very hot summer in terms of our strength program and our conditioning and just kind of getting the team out of that shell shock that we were in.
So before I ask you my final question, which is what I ask everybody, tell everybody about Buckeye Scoop, where they can find you, what you guys do.
Yeah, so BuckeyeScoop.com, we're an online Ohio State community. We're one of the largest ones. We're independent, so we're not affiliated with any sites in terms of like any of the recruiting services. But it's really it's a blast. We have a really high-end level of people. We have people from the Board of Trustees at Ohio State. We have some names that are on our site that I see them in the subscription log, and I'm like, wow, it's kind of cool. They subscribe to the site. But we have Bill Green, who's a long time, about 30 years, recruiting analyst. He really runs South Florida, Georgia, gets a ton of great information on recruiting. Nevada, Buckeye, we do a lot of inside stuff for the team. Again, we had a nugget this weekend. I got a really good tip on how well Jelani Thurman is doing, along with Carnell Tate through the early workouts. Because you always wonder when these freshmen show up, who's homesick, who's grinding, who's killing it, and those two guys are like the alphas of the freshman class, which is awesome to hear. But we get all kinds of little inside information. We call it nuggets, which is it's just fun because people love to know what's really going on inside the team. So like that's like what we strive to get, because people want to know who's the next coach who's going to get hired, who's the next coordinator who's going to get hired, who's going to be the next great, offensive tackle. Like people all of a sudden are obsessed with offensive tackles because we're losing Paris and Dewan, and everyone's like, are we going to have tackles this year? I'm like, I think we'll be fine. I really do. I think, we'll gen it up, and if it's Zen and Josh Fryer, then that'll be fine. If it's Donovan Jackson at left tackle, that'll be fine. But, I think that, Justin Fryer is a good line coach, but we basically talk Ohio State football every day, all day. And we also have a podcast. You can just search for Buckeye Scoop on any podcast format. Also on YouTube. If you guys like the video format, the YouTube's fantastic. We do those every day. Do a lot of live shows. Pretty much every night we're doing a live show. We break down a lot of recruiting film. So it's a blast. Like, I love it. The board is like a living, breathing thing. The message board is. So there's always someone up and talking about something. So it's really cool. Like, I love the community, and it's a fun place to be. So if you guys are huge hardcore Ohio State fans, you can't get enough, man, BuckeyeScoop.com is your spot because it is a blast to hang out on there.
There you go. Check it out, everybody. It's one of my stops. I go there.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie. I actually go there and check it out and get some of what we end up talking right from you, Kirk. So I appreciate that. All right. Last question. This is the one I ask everybody. What does it mean to you to be a Buckeye?
Man, it's kind of something that's given me a lot in my life. It's given me really everything. I really I've met so many great people through the program. Tress, Urban, obviously my teammates. A lot of people that have helped me in business are Ohio State people. I do sell. I'm a fleet consultant. I sell fleet trucks for Riker right now. So I actually go around, go to the biggest companies in Columbus, try to help them out with their fleet needs. So we're selling a lot of trucks, a lot of vans. Amazon's coming to town, Intel's coming to town. So Rick Reicher's one of my best friends. He gave me an awesome job. It's a blast to do every day. But it helps because like when you're a Buckeye, it's easy to talk to people. If you get a little bit of inside scuttle, it never hurts because people like to know, hey, what's going on with the quarterback derby, or are we getting this recruit, or whatever. And I generally, since that's my passion, I usually have a pretty good handle on what's going on inside the program. So it just means a lot. I love Ohio State. I love everything about it. I love playing there. I love beating Michigan, which is fantastic. We got to get back to that. I love my tree, and it's just the people that are around the program and the people that support the program are just they're so great. They're so fun to get to know. That's one of the joys about doing my podcast and doing live shows is I have usually a couple hundred people show up and they watch it and they ask great questions and I get to interact with them, and it's kind of the same on the scoop at a much bigger level because I'm always on the scoop. So I mean, if people need me or they got a question, man, you can sign up and ask away. But I don't know. I love it. I love everything about it. I know it kind of galvanizes the state of Ohio because otherwise you're split between the Browns, Bengals, Indians, Reds. But everyone's an Ohio State fan for the most part. So it's fun. You represent the state. It's the kind of the state team that everybody likes to rep when they leave the state, go on vacation, wherever they like to wear their Ohio State gear everywhere they go. And that's just kind of what we do. That's what Ohio people do. And Ohio people stick together. And that's why I love Ohio. Beautiful answer, my man. I appreciate it. Hey, thank you so much again for joining us here on the OHIO podcast. It's been a lot of fun. Got to finally get that question answered, Chris, about how do they know that they become All-Americans. You would think it would be so much more exciting than what that was, Kirk. Yeah, I'm telling you. But hey, at least you got a tree. You said you love your tree. That was good. The tree is great, man. It's something you're always proud of. So that is awesome. I also like the comment you said about playing Alaska for the team up north on their schedule. They played Alaska. Yeah. I think they might be playing them again this year, unfortunately. Probably. It's like what the SEC schools do week 11. They play Antarctica or Chechnya or somewhere. So Oh my gosh, so true. All right, guys, it's that time. Thank you so much again, Kirk, for coming on. We appreciate it. As always, guys, please hit the like, share, subscribe. You know all that good stuff. Really does help us grow as we continue to grow our community here at the OHIO podcast. Be kind to one another. I know someone's OH and sing Carbon Ohio with all your heart. Until next time, OH! IO! Go Bucks!